They're the business deals that shake things up,
A turning point in corporate history.
that change the way we think,
Hostile takeovers.
Leverage buyouts.
and surprise the street.
You're not going to walk away.
1995. A wealthy conservative family makes a controversial charge to buy a Hollywood movie studio.
There's been a history of outsiders being interested in Hollywood, and of course, Hollywood is littered with their corpses.
A surprising $5 billion gamble led by the family rebel.
We're not going to get screwed by Hollywood.
And from another era, a struggling milkshake machine salesman fights to broker the fast food deal of a lifetime. A move that cost two enterprising brothers their own last name.
From now on, they were his enemies.
Ray Kroc chases the McDonald brothers, and Seagram circles MCA. Two big deals that break all the rules. (1993). Americans have health on their minds. Juice bars and fitness clubs are popping up on every corner. The days of the two-martini lunch have come to an end. For sellers of hard liquor, times are tough. Among those being hit hard is the venerable Seagram Company, the world's largest distributor of spirits. Now, with the current health craze going strong and the U.S. economy struggling out of a recession, Seagram profits are slumping for the third straight year. The Canadian controller of the Seagram dynasty is the Bronfman family, led by 64-year-old Edgar M. Bronfman. As CEO and chairman of the board, he's a tough boss with a quick temper. At Edgar's side is his younger brother, Charles. As co-chairman of the board, Charles wields enormous power in the form of a veto. But it is Edgar who has the final say on all business matters.
It was a very family-oriented business, but Edgar Bronfman Sr. was really the patriarch. He was the one who was the chief executive, was the chairman, called the shots.
Edgar and Charles grew the business from the days their father began as a distiller in 1924. They transformed it into a vast empire boasting investments in real estate, coal, chemicals, and most prominently, spirits and wine. But with Seagram's liquor profits slumping in the early 1990s, the Bronfman brothers face a potential crisis.
Well, the liquor business has never been a particularly high-growth business, and I think it's a business that's always got regulatory issues. You couldn't really advertise it too much back then. There wasn't a lot of growth in the future of the liquor business.
To counter their losses, the family decides to look for more profitable investments. Leading the charge to diversify their portfolio is Edgar Bronfman Jr., son of the CEO and heir apparent to the Seagram throne.
He wants to take Seagram in a new direction. He wants to get out of he doesn't see the spirits business as much of a growth business.
Good-looking, charming, charismatic, he's also the former family rebel whose rise to the top of the family business has been anything but smooth. After graduating from high school in 1973, Edgar Bronfman Jr. disappointed his father and his uncle, who had envisioned a future for him at Seagram. He turned his back on college and the family business and headed to Hollywood, where he dabbled in movie producing. But in 1982, the 26-year-old prodigal son yielded to family pressure and took a job with Seagram in New York. Young Bronfman quickly developed into an inspired leader with a singular vision for growth. In 1989, he was named Seagram's chief operating officer. Now, 4 years later, he believes if he doesn't change the direction of Seagram, the legendary company built by his family may fall into financial ruin.
I was concerned that we would not be able to continue to create real value for our shareholders if we continued to invest only in the spirits and wine business.
Bronfman dreams up a new plan for his family's threatened dynasty. He sets his sights on a return to Hollywood. Only this time he's bringing his family and their money. Bronfman's ultimate goal, to transform Seagram into an entertainment empire.
I think everybody believed that he somehow persuaded his older and wiser family members that they needed to spend that money to get into Hollywood.
Well, my background did play a role, and I certainly did lead the charge to diversify Seagram into entertainment. The theory at that time was I thought entertainment would be a fast-growing segment, so that's really why we chose entertainment, to try and increase or accelerate our revenue and value.
May 1993, Edgar Bronfman Jr. puts his bold plan for Seagram into action. He aggressively snatches up 5.7% of the shares in the media powerhouse Time Warner, owner of Time and People magazines, HBO, and the legendary Hollywood studio Warner Brothers. Over the next year, he increases Seagram's stake to almost 15%, worth $2.1 billion. Then, fearful of a hostile takeover, Time Warner chairman Gerald Levin and his board blocked Bronfman Jr. from buying a larger stake in their company.
Jerry Levin did not welcome him as an investor and was very suspicious of his motives. There was just total contempt for him, and they were not going to let him in. They weren't going to put him on the board. They weren't going to listen to anything he had to say. They just wanted to freeze him out.
Bronfman's first run at an entertainment empire is cut short. But halfway around the world, a Japanese corporate giant is about to open another door. Matsushita, a powerful electronics corporation, is the manufacturer of Panasonic and Quasar products. Known as an extremely traditional Japanese company, Matsushita surprised the business world in 1990 by purchasing the legendary Hollywood company MCA Entertainment for $6.5 billion.
MCA was one of the biggest entertainment conglomerates, so it was one of the premier companies at the top of the Hollywood group.
The 70-year-old entertainment empire's stable included Universal Pictures, MCA Records, a renowned theme park, and a string of blockbuster films from director Steven Spielberg, including Jurassic Park, E.T., and Jaws. MCA is one of the most prized commodities in Hollywood. But Matsushita President Yoshi Morishita, a no-nonsense executive with an unyielding commitment to a firm bottom line, could not connect with MCA's Hollywood style. By mid-1994, Morishita's relationship with MCA management is on the rocks. What's more, a Japanese recession is crippling Matsushita's electronics sales. Morishita begins to think about selling off MCA. But he wants to sell it quietly. In the complex world of Japanese business, selling an American company only 4 years after buying it will signify Japanese incompetence and provoke ridicule.
Matsushita is very much the traditional Japanese company in that it is very much concerned with the image, never wants to admit a mistake, and keeps face at all costs.
As Morishita comes to terms with the unwelcome necessity of selling MCA, Edgar Bronfman Sr. is passing on the reins of the family business. On June 1, 1994, the 64-year-old retiring CEO of Seagram announces his successor. The guardian of the family empire is to be his son, 39-year-old Edgar Bronfman Jr. He's an untested CEO who never graduated from college, a CEO in charge of the Seagram legacy and more than $1 billion of the Bronfman family's personal wealth.
I was very much aware that the legacy that my grandfather had built, that my father really had enlarged, rested now with me.
In late January of 1995, Edgar Bronfman Jr. gets an amazing tip. He learns that Matsushita is secretly looking to sell MCA Entertainment.
My instinct was simply to get on a plane by myself and go see their CEO, their chairman, and try and develop a personal relationship.
But pursuing MCA is not a decision Bronfman can make on his own. He will need approval from his father and his Uncle Charles, the two most powerful men in the Bronfman family.
There's been a history of outsiders being interested in Hollywood, and of course, Hollywood is littered with their corpses.
The entertainment business is a pure guess. It's by gut feel. Nobody hits it every time. Even the best people flop regularly.
It will not be an easy sell. The risks are apparent, particularly to Uncle Charles.
I think what he was most interested in was the family fortune and whether it was going to grow or not.
But getting his uncle on board is only part of the equation. Even if he does, the big question is, can Edgar Bronfman Jr. convince the Japanese to sell him MCA?